everyone, my name is Tara. Welcome back to my channel. I had a lot of questions about my personal experience with OCD from the meditation for OCD and yoga for OCD videos that I posted, so I figured I'd come on here and share a little bit more. If you're new to my channel, you don't know who I am, you're gonna see that my name says Dr. Tara Salay, but I am a doctor of physical therapy. I am not a doctor or trained in any mental health field, so I'm not trying to diagnose you or tell you treatment plans with this video. All I'm doing is sharing my personal experience to hopefully help you feel like you're not alone. Sometimes it's nice to hear other people's experiences, so that's what we're doing in today's video. If you have no idea what OCD is, I'm not going to go into the whole definition of OCD, but it is a diagnosis that's pretty commonly misunderstood. So I do recommend looking it up, reading about it, learning about it so that you actually understand what it is, because there's a lot of preconceived notions on what OCD is, and some of them have some truth to them, but it's a really shallow view at the diagnosis. So yeah, I'm going to try to just talk through my story the best I can, make this more informal and not so scripted. I did take some notes, so I have some points that I want to make in today's video. I do have OCD, so I had to have some organization. No, just kidding. That's an OCD stereotype. I'm actually really not organized. So here is my story. So I was first diagnosed with OCD when I was a kid, about 8 years old. But when I talked to my mom, it sounds like I probably was having OCD symptoms like as early as 5 years old, but by 8 years old, I was having more external compulsions where my mom was like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? Let me bring her into therapy. And I was diagnosed with OCD. So you could have mental compulsions or external compulsions. In my adulthood, I've dealt more with the mental compulsions, but you can have either. So I went to therapy for a little while. I freaking hated therapy. I have no idea what I did in therapy. I think it helped me enough to make it manageable, and then I convinced my mom I was not going to therapy anymore, and that was pretty much it. And then from that year on, so maybe we'll say I was like 9 up until more my adulthood, I definitely had OCD for sure. Things continued on. I still had compulsions, but it was manageable. It was just like part of little rituals, I guess you'll say, that I did, but it didn't really interfere with my everyday life. So I kind of like left it in the background. It didn't really seem like a problem. And then when I was in grad school, so probably around 23, my OCD started to like slowly start creeping up from there, and I started getting new symptoms. The thing was, when this was happening, it was a lot more mental type OCD. So I really considered OCD probably more in the stereotypical sense that people think about it. It was more how I experienced it as a kid. I didn't really think these mental things were OCD. I really didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together. So it kind of continued like slowly creeping up from there. And I'm gonna say, I guess, breaking point where I started just feeling like really terrible, really feeling like this was really impacting my life, was probably in my mid-20s. And it was when I started having really, really terrible intrusive thoughts. And I'm not going to go into detail on my intrusive thoughts just because I'm not that comfortable to share my personal intrusive thoughts. If maybe one day I will be, not right now, but if you've had intrusive thoughts, you probably know how impactful they can be, especially when you don't know how to deal with them. So now I know what it is, I know how to deal with them, but at that point I didn't even know that this was part of OCD. I literally just thought I was losing my mind. Like I really thought I was super fucked up, and I had no idea what was wrong with me. I actually remember, I like vividly remember this point because I was in a relationship with my husband now. He was my boyfriend at that time. My intrusive thoughts were so bad, I like couldn't deal with it anymore. I hadn't told anyone, but I felt like I was like, I need to tell him. And I was so convinced, like literally, not only am I dealing with these horrifying intrusive thoughts, I am completely convinced that I'm gonna tell my boyfriend then, and granted we had been together at this point for probably like 5 years. I'm gonna tell him, and I was convinced. I'm like, he's gonna leave me. For sure, he's gonna leave me. Like, there's no way he's gonna stay with me. So I finally told him, and his response was like, yeah, so who cares? Like, literally so nonchalant. So that response, obviously I was very happy he wasn't going to leave me, because that was really seriously what I thought was gonna happen. And his response did make me feel better in that moment, but it didn't really take away the intrusive thoughts like that I would continue to have from there on out. And that can be because it might have been more of a compulsion, which I think it's still good to be open with your partner, right, and share with them, but it can be a compulsion of needing to get their reassurance. For sure. Definitely at this point, I didn't even know it was OCD, so I had no idea that that could be like reassurance seeking. But yeah, so that was my really low point. But then from there, my OCD did keep spiraling, getting worse with the intrusive thoughts. And I had other things going on, even like just doing obsessions of other things, doing mental compulsions. But really the intrusive thoughts were like kind of the forefront of my mind that was really bothering me. So I finally Googled it. This is probably, I don't know how long it was. I would say at least 6 months of dealing with these intrusive thoughts and not really knowing where they were coming from, right? And I would get that reassurance from my husband, my boyfriend, of being like, oh, who cares? Like, it's fine, who cares? But then it wasn't really helping me in the long run. So I finally Googled it, and I found that intrusive thoughts are really common in OCD. And I was like, oh shit, I have OCD. I've always had OCD. Is this a new symptom of my OCD that I just didn't understand? And that was where I was able to really start to get the help I needed, because I actually understood what was going on with me. And it was so interesting because as I was Googling it, like at this time, it was the intrusive thoughts that were the worst part. So that was like the forefront of my mind. If you have OCD, you probably know there's usually one theme that, like, you might have multiple themes, but usually there's one theme that's like really bothering you at one time. So at this time, it was the intrusive thoughts. But as I was reading through and learning about this diagnosis, I realized I had so many of the other themes going on like in the background that they would cause me some distress. They just weren't causing as much distress. But it was so interesting because I was like, my God, like I really I kind of knew in the back of my head, yeah, I got diagnosed with OCD when I was a kid. Like, I have some OCD tendencies, but that was where I really realized I really think I have full-blown OCD right now, and I definitely need help. So yeah, from there, it was like a journey of finding the right therapist to work with. And I will say, if you have OCD, it's so, so important to find someone who really does understand what OCD is, because I've worked with, like, so when I was first looking for a therapist, the first therapist I went to, technically she apparently said that she did treat OCD, but she had no idea how to treat OCD. And I would say, like, she really didn't even understand the diagnosis. I probably only saw her maybe like 4 sessions. And then I was done. I was like, I need someone else. This is not helping me at all. I don't know if it was making me worse. That is a thing. Like, sometimes with OCD, it's not like you want to be, I don't know, like some therapies, like really just diving into like, why are you having this thought? Like, that's really not helpful with OCD. So anyway, from there, I found someone, or I did my own research, found what treatments were really helpful. So this is how I looked it up, and I found that like CBT and ERP were really helpful. So I found someone that specialized in that, and then I found a therapist that definitely understood OCD and started to help me get better from there. I currently now use, it's called nocd.com, and so this is where my therapist is now. This is a different therapist, but I found her through there. All of their therapists are trained in OCD. They understand OCD. This is not sponsored. It's just such a good resource to use to be able to find a therapist, because like I said, my first therapist apparently specialized in OCD. Like, she had it on the list, I treat OCD, but she didn't really treat OCD. And now I know she definitely didn't treat OCD. So it's such a good resource, and I will put a link to it in the description down below. So if you're looking for a therapist, you could find it. But therapy for sure was my biggest turning point, especially doing ERP, exposure response prevention. That was just so transformational for me and really helped get me on the right track. And also I've gotten this question, so I do want to address that, about taking medication for OCD. Again, I am not a medical professional in this field, so I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just sharing with you my experience. But therapy was helping me a lot. I definitely got a lot better, but I still felt somewhat like stuck, and then I did decide to go for the medication. I was resistant to it, I'll be honest. Also, if you watch my channel, you probably know I'm super into being like natural and like holistic healing, but sometimes medication is the answer. So I did go on medication, and it did really make a difference for me. So I took an SSRI. I still am on a really low dose right now of that medication. So I'm exploring possibly coming off like slowly. I'm doing it literally so slowly. So I don't know, but right now I do still take something. So just being upfront with you guys. But yeah, I know I've gotten that question, so I hope that helped answer that. I'm trying to think what else I want to say. I mean, there's so many subtypes of OCD, and I've dealt with definitely a range of different subtypes. And what's really interesting is contamination is one of those stereotypical, right, things that people think of with OCD, and not everyone who has OCD has contamination, fears, and usually when people do have the contamination, it's different than what people actually think. But so interesting, I never had contamination, and up until more recently, I would say currently the theme I struggle with the most is contamination. So it's just interesting how that actually happened. And it's interesting how your OCD can jump to different themes, which is why it is really important to be active in your treatment, like when you're going through therapy. And I don't do a lot of therapy anymore. I do like check-ins with my therapist. At this point, I really know I did therapy for so long. I know what I have to do to manage my symptoms, and I still have my therapist if I need her. So we do more like check-ins every once in a while. But yeah, that's like another thing that I want to share. Just interesting how it really has just jumped around to different themes like in my life. And yeah, it's such a weird diagnosis. It really is. And it for sure could be really distressing. It can make you feel like you're really alone, but you're not. There's a lot of people out there that have OCD, and hopefully talking about it helps. Just bring awareness to it, helps people feel like they're not as alone, helps you know that it can get better. Like I was in some really dark times when my OCD was really flared up, and it does get better. It does. I don't know if OCD goes away totally. Like I do believe in the research that there is some, I don't want to like give the wrong information. I didn't even research for this video, but there's research showing like there is a chemical difference in the brain of people that do have OCD. Let's leave it at that. You could look it up on your own, but I do believe that. So I think my brain tends to go toward that more obsessive compulsive nature. So I don't know if it'll ever be completely gone. Maybe. I also am pretty spiritual and believe in like energy healing, so I do believe that you can really heal from things that people say you can't heal from, but I don't know if it would be totally gone. I feel like my brain still works that way, and I'm gonna have to actively make sure I'm doing the right things to keep myself from falling backward. But I don't know. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we all have our struggles, and I think that they can help us on our path. They help guide us to where we're supposed to be going, right? Like we do have these struggles that help us grow. So I really do believe that. And for me, I believe OCD is just one of those struggles that challenges me, and it does help me grow. Like I've grown so much spiritually And a lot of it is from my experience with OCD and just learning to like change my perspective around things. I think in terms of, so therapy definitely, especially if your OCD is really flared, like therapy definitely for sure. So therapy was really game changer. But for me, more going forward, once I got my OCD more to a manageable point, really just diving into my spiritual practice, like yoga, meditation, has made such a tremendous impact on my life because it's just really changed my mindset on things. And especially in my spiritual practice, like I guess the biggest takeaway that I have as of right now, because your spiritual practice is always growing and it's always evolving, but it's so interesting because OCD really is a fear of the unknown. Like OCD does not like when you don't have the answer, and it doesn't like if something's not 100%. But really, like, is anything in life ever 100%, right? Is there ever a 100% clear-cut answer, right? No, there's not. And as you go into like a spiritual practice, it's like diving into the beauty of the unknown in the universe. Like, it's so beautiful and mystical and magical that things are unknown. And in your spiritual practice, you're slowly uncovering, right, things and things about yourself, things about the universe. But still, it is the unknown, and it's so beautiful. And OCD takes like, oh, the unknown and makes it something bad, and the unknown doesn't have to be something bad, right? It can be beautiful, it can be mystical, right? It could be like, okay, this is an exploration. So that's probably my biggest takeaway from a spiritual practice in terms of OCD, being like, okay, I am actually really mystified by the unknown. It really fascinates me. It feels really beautiful to me, and it doesn't need to be so scary. And this is really helpful for when I'm having OCD. Not for everything. Everything's not so easy. It's not like I can just say that and now, oh, I don't have any compulsions, right? Nothing's that simple, but it is a takeaway that has really helped me. So I figured I would share it with you guys in this video. So I can see I've been talking for like 20 minutes. I don't know, maybe I'll cut this video down shorter. I hope that this has really helped you in some way. Maybe it just helped you to feel like someone else is dealing with something similar. Maybe you had a takeaway from this, but just know you are not alone. I deal with OCD. I know other people that deal with OCD, and honestly, so for me, opening up to people in my life, and I don't share like, I don't share like the exact details of my OCD, but just opening up, someone very close to me in my life, it really opened their eyes, and they were like, holy shit, I'm pretty sure I have OCD, and now they were able to get the help they need. So talking about it is a good thing, and you don't have to give details, but just being open with people that are close to you, it can be really healing. Not in a way of needing to like confess and making it into a compulsion, just open, honest conversation. So resources on my channel, if you're new and you haven't seen me yet, I do have one yoga flow that's for OCD. I have one meditation that is for OCD. So basically I created those thinking, okay, like what would help me in when my OCD is feeling bad, or what would help me with just like how my brain works. So you can check those out. I'll link them in the description down below for you guys. I am going to be starting a Patreon. No pressure to join. I have a lot of free resources here on my channel to help you on your spiritual practice, to help you with yoga and meditation, right? But I am starting the Patreon. We're going to be doing a theme each month, and then there will be a video where we talk about it. There will be a meditation, and then I think I'm going to do it as a second tier. So if you don't practice yoga, you could do the one tier that just has the meditation and the educational video, and then the second tier will have a nice hour-long yoga flow on the theme of the month. And it's not going to be specific for OCD, but what I create on there is going to be around topics that I feel have helped me on my spiritual practice, that have helped me feel the best mentally. So if you're interested in that, keep an eye out. I'm hoping to have that launch in January, But yeah, that's all from me for today. Thank you so much for listening, for sharing this space with me. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe. You could hit the subscribe button right below me. And I will see you guys in another video. Bye guys.